Hey there, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jess with So Many Creations. I have a confession to make, and I feel like a lot of you are gonna understand me because I think we're a lot alike. When I went and bought my new sewing machine, one of the big things, I don't wanna say a selling feature, but definitely something that sounded pretty impressive was how many stitches came with my machine. There's 200, 300, 8 billion stitches that come with our machines. How many do you use? If I'm being honest, and I am here to confess, I think I use one, maybe two. I might throw in a zigzag here and there, but for the most part, as a bag maker, I use a straight stitch. I go backwards and forwards, but that's about it. Well, that's gonna change today for you and for me, because in today's project, we're gonna use a whole bunch of those fun decorative stitches. So this right here is our project for today. This is a little notebook cover that you don't have to have an embroidery machine to make. I do embroider cork a lot and I love how it looks, but if you don't have an embroidery machine, I bet you have a bunch of these stitches on your machine that you can use. So what you're gonna need for this is some cork, you're gonna need a bunch of thread colors, and your basic sewing supplies, nothing crazy. So let me show you what the inside looks like, because the inside is really fun. So here's my front cover. When I open it up, you can see it's very glitzy and glamorous. How did I do that? Heat transfer vinyl. Now that is totally optional. You don't have to have heat transfer vinyl. There's definitely some other ways around it. This one, for instance, I did not put anything on the inside, and you can see the back of my stitches. It's a notebook cover, so that's totally fine. But this just kind of steps it up and makes it really interesting. Plus, who doesn't need another hobby to get involved in and more supplies to buy, right? I know, I'm an enabler. So I have my heat transfer vinyl. I like that it gives it a little bit of extra stiffness and stability, but it's not hard to work with. And we'll talk about that later. On the inside, there's two little pockets right here. There's a pen holder, and then you have a place for your notebook. This is just your standard 5x8 little pad. Just like that, you can also put some other things over here, close it up, and you're good to go. Now, if you would like, you can absolutely add some kind of closure to this, but for today's video, I did not do anything like that. There is no hardware required. It is cork, it is basic sewing supplies, and that's about it. So on the next screen, I'm gonna show you all of your supplies as well as your cutting pieces. You don't have to go and download anything. So get ready to have fun. The longest step, the biggest process that this whole thing is gonna take is picking out your thread color and your stitches. So let's get into it. I've gathered all my supplies, so let's go ahead and go over what you're going to need for your project. First thing you're going to need is a piece of cork. I've already trimmed this down to 9 inches high by 19.5 inches wide. I also have a small piece right here. This is 1 inch high by 2 inches wide. That's going to be for the little pen holder that's inside. We will be doing some trimming on this to get the angled edges that you have right here, and I'll go over that in just a minute. On the back of this one, I did not do any kind of finishing. I just left my stitches as is. That does not bother me, especially because my notebook is going to be in here. If that bothers you, you'll want to use the heat transfer vinyl, or you could even use another piece of cork. You could back that, just put the two pieces wrong sides together and sew to save some cost and to also cut down on bulk on my machine. I'm just going to use a piece of heat transfer vinyl. That's what I had in the finished one. So this is cut down to 9 inches high by 11. This is only going to go in this area right here. I didn't do it on the back side of this, so it's just in that part right there. I also have a bunch of different colors of thread because I'm going to use this color scheme to do my stitching on this one. I'm probably going to do something similar to this one right here, but I just wanted to grab a couple different colors so I can play around with those. I have some clips, which I will definitely need, and scissors. I have my ruler and rotary cutter to do some trimming. And the 2 feet that I'm going to be using are the F2, which is my clear open toe foot. That's gonna be for my decorative stitches. And my G foot, which is my blind hem foot, that's what I'm going to use to do the 1/8 inch stitching all the way around the edges and the top stitching. So those are the only 2 feet that I need. If you are skipping the decorative stitches, you can just pick a color thread that you like on your cork. I could match this and do black, or I could pick a different color. It depends on, on what kind of mood I'm in. And I also brought over, because I am going to do the stitches, some washi tape. I don't have an erasable pen with me today, and I don't have anything that's going to show up on the dark cork. So I'm going to show you a little trick that I use with washi tape. It's really just the same. So if you don't have washi tape and you have something that's removable, you can use that as well. So now that I have all my pieces, I'm gonna clear my spot here. I'm going to get this piece trimmed down and I'll show you how I mark it and start stitching. I have my main piece of cork. So again, this is 9 inches high by 19 inches wide. I am going to do the decorative stitching, but if you've chosen not to, you can always use a printed cork. There's a lot to choose from. I've got a chevron, another chevron, but there's so many different options. So if you want to do something a little bit quicker and you want to skip the stitching, printed cork is a great way to go. So for this piece right here, what I'm going to do is trim my little angles on my corners. And what I like to do is just fold this in half. That way I can cut through 2 layers at once. I'm just going to line up those edges, and using my mat, I'm going to place my ruler so that it is 4 inches down, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 inches over, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just gonna line that up, and always double checking. I don't know about you, but I'm always double checking my math. All right, so I've got that lined up. Go ahead and cut those pieces off. I'm gonna save these because those are going to be the little pockets that go inside of my notebook holder. So this pile right here is ready to go to the machine and get top stitched. All I'm going to do is just top stitch the 2 longer edges on the piece right here for my pen, and I'm gonna top stitch this angled side on each of the triangles. So I'll put those here. I'm gonna set those aside with my thread. Now that I have this piece trimmed, I want to mark out the front. So let me grab the finished one. So I want to mark out this front section because I want to know where I'm stitching. Not that I couldn't stitch everywhere. I could absolutely just stitch anywhere that I wanted to, or I could even embroider if I wanted, but I wanted to just do something on the front, just to save a little bit of time, a little bit of thread, and just to kind of, center it. I just like the look of it being on the front. So what I'm going to do here is I'm gonna mark this out with my washi tape. Again, you can use an erasable pen or pencil, but I'm gonna do this with washi tape. So I know that my front is going to be this side right here. My back is gonna be the left, my front is going to be the right. And I just want this section right here that's going to show. So I'm going to mark off this 4 inches right here. That's what I just trimmed. So I'm just gonna use my washi tape. And washi tape is great because it comes right off, it doesn't leave any residue, and it's fairly thin. So I'm gonna put this on that side. So I'm putting my first piece of tape towards the side that's gonna be folded. So this is actually the fold line. So I'm 4 inches over and I'm putting it to the right-hand side. That way I don't have to worry about stitching through my tape. Now, my piece is 19.5, so I'm going to find my center. So half of 19.5 is going to be 9 3/4. So I'm going to mark on the left side of that line, right here, and bring that down. Just tear that. So now I have my front section. So when this is all folded and put together, and this is tucked under here, that is going to be the part that shows. So that is where I want to do my stitching. Now I can just take this over and start stitching wherever I want to. I kind of like the look of this one where I have the different stitches coming at an angle. So in order to help me get that lined up without having to draw a lot of markings, I'm gonna use my ruler and I'm gonna use my 45-degree line right here. I'm just gonna place that on the bottom edge of the cork. Once I have that there, I'm just gonna throw a piece of tape down. And this is not really to help me to place my stitches. This is just gonna help me to keep them going in the right direction. So I'm not really as concerned about where I put this tape. I'm not measuring my placement. I'm just making sure that it's at an angle that I am happy with so that I can use my presser foot and follow along. I hope that makes sense. So I'm gonna take my 45-degree line and I'm just gonna slide it to the left here a little bit. Put another piece of tape down. This does not need to be perfect. This is just some extra guidelines. So there we go. And I'll do another one up here. And since my 45 is not going to reach, I will just use one of these lines. And I'll do it right there. And just use that, keep that pretty straight, and throw another piece of tape. Okay, so now that I have that marked out, I know that I'm gonna keep my stitching within these two lines here, and I'm going to keep my presser foot going at this nice angle. I'm gonna grab my thread, head over to my machine, and start playing around with some of my stitches. First things first is I'm going to put my foot on, so I'm using my F2 foot. I have a natural colored thread in the bobbin. It's like a light beige. I could switch that out to black, but I'm just gonna leave that for right now because I know I'm gonna cover up my stitches, the back of them, so I'm not really concerned. If I wasn't, I would definitely switch that to black, but I'm just gonna leave it for right now. I'm gonna grab one of my threads. I'm just starting with any of them. Get this threaded. I'm using all cotton threads. These are all Aurifil, because I really like how they look on the cork. These are 40 weight, so they have a little, they're a little bit heavier, not too heavy for my domestic, but just heavy enough that they show really nicely. Unlock. And now I get to have some fun. So one of the things that I have found that I like the best, especially on a cork that has a print or that is busy at all, is I like to pick something that's a little bit more of a dense stitch. So something like the hearts up here, there's some arrows here, I love those, those are really fun. There's some leaves, there's some different, I'm not really sure what this, kind of a zigzag with a flower. I like those stitches a little bit better, but I will throw in some of the more open designs, like there's a really cool star right here, I have not done that one yet. I'll throw in some of those, but if I really want this to stand out, I wanna use as much contrast on my thread, and I wanna use some of the thicker, heavier stitches. That's just kind of what I like. It's the look I'm going for. I don't know what I want. I think I wanna start down here. I think I want to start in the decorative stitches, 64 and 65, and also I like 16 and 15. So I'm gonna play around with some of those, and then I'm definitely going to jump over and do this kind of little rock one over here in long, and the stars in pictograph. So first thing is I'm going to change to decorative right here, and I'm gonna start with 64. So I gotta scoot over here. There we go, 64. I'm not changing any of the settings. It's maxed out on the width and the length, and that is fine with me. So what I'm gonna do now is just randomly place my foot. I am gonna drop that and make sure I have my foot lift on. And I'm just gonna start back right by the tape. I'm trying not to sew through the tape. If I get a little bit of it, it's not a problem. I can get it out, but the less I have to get in there and dig with scissors, the better. So I'm going to just put my presser foot right up against this line. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing decorative stitches versus embroidery, with embroidery, you don't want to go too far, but you can walk away from your machine. It's in a hoop, it's doing its own, thing. With this, if you don't keep your hands here and slowly guide this, what's going to happen is it's going to go all over the place. It's going to do its own thing. And since we don't want that, we want to guide this. I'm just going to stay put, keep my hands loosely on here, just kind of guiding it. And here we go. I'm getting towards the end and I don't want to go over onto my tape. So I'm going to hit this button down here, which says LS. That is a locking stitch. It's going to end my stitch for me. And I'm good to go. That looks awesome. I love this thread. I absolutely love this color. So I'm going to keep that color on, and I'm gonna go to a different stitch and add some more. I like to work with one color, add a bunch of stitches, go back and add some more. So since I have, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7 different colors, probably gonna do maybe 2 stitches of each. What do I want next? I wanna try this one right here. This is the fun part, is that you get to really, you know, explore your stitches and your machine, play with some different things. I'm now moving from decorative into the long stitches. I don't know why they're long and not decorative. They look decorative to me. And I'm gonna do stitch number 16. And I'm gonna put 16, I'm gonna come over here and be on the opposite side of the tape. And maybe back up a little bit. All right, let's see how this one looks. Definitely more open, but that's all right. I wanna kind of get even amounts of thread. I don't want it to be so overwhelmed with thread that that's all that you see. I finished up all of my decorative stitches and I absolutely love how this one came out. When I finished, I did go ahead and trim all of my threads. There were a lot, especially in between the little hearts right here, and I can see that I missed one. That one had like a little connecting thread, so I just went and trimmed all of those. I selected my stitches at random and just kind of went with it. I didn't really think too hard about what I was doing or color placement. I just threw them on there. I could absolutely add more, and I am from the school of more is more, and I would be happy to do a few more stitches, but I thought I would stop for now. Just kind of keep it a little bit more simple. I know some of you are probably thinking this is not simple at all, but it's okay. I love it. I love how it came out. So one thing I just wanted to note is that I did have my pieces of tape going diagonally. Once I was at a point where I had kind of filled in most of those spaces, I did remove them. And then I just used my presser foot kind of up against one of my stitches that's already here, or I would just kind of eyeball it. Is it perfect? Absolutely not, but I don't care. It's fine. They're all going at the same diagonal and they all look pretty straight and even to me, so I'm good. Once I got done with that, I did take this over to the iron just to give it a quick press. Yes, you can press cork as long as it does not have a heavy metallic overlay. If that's the case, you can press it on the back. I did just want to give it a little press because it got a little wonky for all the stitching. So while I was at my machine, I also top stitched my two corner pieces. I just did the diagonal edge 1/8 of an inch using my G foot, which is my blind hem foot. And then on my little piece right here for my pen, let me snip those threads. I just stitched the two longer edges. I do increase my top stitching length 3.5. I will show you that again when we get back to the machine to finish this up, but I just wanted to mention that. And I did use a purple thread. Now on the back of this, you'll see a lot of the beige bobbin thread that I had in there. I did not change it. I chose not to change it because I knew I was going to cover it up. On the back of these, I also use that same thread color. However, when I get to the finishing stages, which we're almost at now, and I'm ready to start closing this up, I'm going to switch my bobbin thread because the bobbin thread is actually what's going to show on the outside since we'll be stitching from this side. So I'll have my top thread here and my bobbin thread, and I don't really want the beige on there. So before I go forward and finish this, I do have my piece of heat transfer vinyl. Again, this is totally optional. You do not need to do this, but it's really simple to work with if you've never worked with it before and you want to try it. What I did is I trimmed this down to 9 high by 11 wide. That's going to cover the center portion right here. So that's going to fit right in between there, just like that. Just kind of center that. And remember, this is going to fold over like that, and this is going to fold over like that. So it doesn't have to be totally perfect. It's just kind of adding a little something to the inside. I may even just trim this down just a hair. It is 9, but sometimes when you're sewing, which you probably have noticed, your fabric or your cork will shift a little bit. So I'm just going to take maybe 1/8 of an inch off. I apologize if you can hear any of the background noise. There is construction going on in the building next door, and it's very noisy. So I apologize if you can hear that. So I'm going to take this over to the ironing board. I'm just going to place this right where I want it, right in the center, and I'm going to iron on it. So the heat transfer vinyl has the adhesive or the transfer part on the back, and there's actually a film that's over this, so it's not going to hurt my iron. I'm just going to use my iron, which is set at full heat. I think it's either the wool setting, whatever the highest heat is on my iron. I also have steam, and I'm just going to press this in place, pull that off, and then I'll be ready to finish up my little notebook cover. So that's all pressed down now. Just remember when you're using heat transfer vinyl that once you start to stick it, you're not unsticking it. So I'm a little crooked up on the top, story of my life. But just to note, so make sure it's exactly where you want it when you start ironing. I'm sure that they come with instructions as far as heat, but I just kind of work my way over and put on as much heat as I feel like I need. It's not peeling up. I know that's not very technical, but I'm not very technical sometimes. So I just fuse that down. It is now stuck on here. It's covering up my stitches. That will be covered when I fold it. And there's a covering. It's going to feel really weird when you start peeling this off because it's thick. It's actually a really thick cover to protect the vinyl. It feels like you're doing something wrong and actually peeling the vinyl off, but you're not. And once that's off, there it is. It's stuck and it's not going anywhere. So I've got that all fused on here. And before I start folding this up, I do want to do a little bit of extra top stitching. When these edges are folded over, we're going to be stitching here and here, but we're not going to have any stitching up here or on these sides right there. So I do like to add a little bit of top stitching. So I'm going to take this over to the machine. I'm going to bring you with me and show you where I like to top stitch. I'm going to change out my bobbin. Again, the bobbin color is going to show now, so I'm going to switch that out, and we're just about done. First things first, I'm going to change out my bobbin. I don't want this beige on here. Let me see. Do I have a bobbin that's a better color? Well, I have some yellow. I could do yellow. Oh, I have mint green. Don't even have to wind a bobbin. I'm good with mint green. Put that one in here. Right. Okay, so I have my blind hem foot on. This is my G foot. My needle is in the left position. It's not all the way to the left, it's at 0.5. I'm using on my S9 stitch number 4. So that is going to bring it to 0.5. I can go over further, but I'm actually really happy with that stitch width. As far as my stitch length, it is still at 3.5. That is what I was using when I top stitched before, and I'm going to keep it there. So I'm just going to go ahead and top stitch around the entire piece. Some of it will be overlapped later, but I'm fine with that. So I'm going to drop my foot, and by using my blind hem foot and my needle in the left position, when I start stitching, it's going to give me this nice 1/8 inch stitching, really close to the edge, nice and even. So I'm just going to go all the way around this piece. All right, so I top stitched all the way around my edges. I just wanted to make sure that all of my edges are finished. Even if some of that stitching is going to be overlapped, I'm fine with that. I'm not doing anything special to finish the cork edges. I'm not, edge coating or doing any kind of finishing there. You can if you want to, but for something like this, I'm fine with it as is. So the last thing I need to add on before I close up my sides is my little pen tab right here. It does not matter what side you put it on. These are going to be turned inward like that, so you can put it on either side. I think I'm going to put it on this side. I usually put it on the left. I'm going to put it on the right. Now it's the left. So I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to grab my ruler, and I'm going to measure down about 3 inches from the top edge here and about 1.25 inches from this side right here. So I'll move that over 1.25 inches and about 3 inches. I'm just going to hang on to this. If you want to use a little bit of double stick tape, you can, but I'm just going to head over to the machine and just stitch on those 2 short edges. I'll be right back. So trim up my threads here. And I said double stick tape, I meant washi tape. You definitely don't want double stick tape because then your pen will get stuck and you'll never be able to use it. So I'm trimming up all of my threads. I have my clips and I have my little triangular pieces. So I'm going to turn this over and just fold one of these edges in, just like that. This should be nice and even up here. It's actually, for me, right up against the piece of vinyl I have. So I'm just going to add a clip right here and do the same thing on this side. Just add a clip. I'm going to take one of my triangles and place it on each side, and I like to place them in the same angle as the top. And when I put them in place, this folded edge right here should line up with the side of that little triangle. And the point of the triangle should come right to the end of that right there. So my triangle is ending on this side. It's starting right here on that folded edge. I'm going to add a couple more clips just to keep that where I want it. Do the same thing over here. So my top stitched edge is facing inward. It's going in the same direction as that fold right there. Add my clip. Scoot that over a little bit. And clip. All right, so the last bit of sewing that I'm going to do, I'm just going to start here, come down and stitch right over to here. Again, start at the top, down and over using my 1/8 inch stitching, and I'm going to back stitch when I start and stop. I'm all done with my notebook cover. I did my final stitching. I just stitched 1/8 of an inch down these sides here and across the bottom. Be careful with your little triangles down here. This one is, well, that was a little squished too. That was my fault. I put this on the bottom when I was stitching, so I couldn't see that the feed dogs had kind of warped them a little bit. So just be careful with your little triangle piece. What I would suggest is either stitching on this side. I chose to stitch on the other side because of my bobbin color. You can either use a stiletto or just start in a little bit and then back stitch instead of starting right on that point. That was totally my fault, but it's okay. This is for me, so it's fine. I took this over to the iron and I folded it in half. I pressed it and I used my pressing clapper just to kind of give it a nice crease in the middle. I have to say I really love the vinyl on the inside. It's totally optional. Don't feel like you have to do it. But I think that it gives it a nice stability. It just makes it feel really professional. So now I've got all of my things here. I can put my notebook right in there. I can put this in here. I don't know what this is, but maybe I have to take it with me wherever I'm going. I have my pen. I have some business cards. I can put some here. I can put some here, and I'm good to go. If I want, I can also add a closure to this. You can add like a little piece of elastic. You could add a decorative button. If you have a rivet setter, you could add a snap, whatever you like. I'm going to leave it just like this. This is just to kind of try and keep me organized and keep it pretty. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the subscribe button. Click the little notification bell to find out when I upload and give it a thumbs up. Happy sewing!